The ring you eat for breakfast was forged in the trenches of 2 world wars. It was fried in helmet oil on frozen battlefields, sold from wooden pushcarts on the Lower East Side, and weaponized into a $10 billion empire by industrialists who understood one brutal truth: a circle of fried dough is never just food. It is survival. It is strategy. It is the perfect geometry of American capitalism. Before it became the midnight ritual of uniformed patrolmen, before it became the animated icon of working-class desire, before it became the 10 billion ring industry that defines American mornings, the donut was something far more dangerous. It was fuel for armies, bait for empires, and the most efficient delivery system of sugar and fat ever engineered. No other food has traveled from battlefield to boardroom with such ruthless efficiency. This is the history of the donut. And the story is far more brutal than the sugar coating suggests. Long before the Dutch sailed to Manhattan, long before the first flour mill turned on American soil, the ancestors of the donut were already being fried in the hearts of ancient civilizations. Archaeological evidence from prehistoric sites reveals that early humans were frying cakes of leavened dough in animal fat thousands of years ago. The Romans consumed fried spheres of dough, soaked in honey and sheep's fat, a caloric weapon designed to sustain legions on the march. In medieval Europe, cooks dropped balls of dough into boiling lard, creating fritters that evolved across centuries of conquest. The technique crossed borders with invading armies, each civilization adding its own fat and flour to the formula. These were not desserts. They were field rations. Portable energy. The original donut was not a treat. It was a tool of empire, carried across borders by soldiers who understood that fried dough keeps longer than bread and delivers more calories per bite than any other food on earth. In the early 17th century, Dutch settlers arrived on the shores of Manhattan carrying a culinary inheritance that would permanently alter the American landscape. They called it the alakoek, the oily cake, a dense sphere of dough fried in pork fat until the exterior turned armor hard and the interior remained soft as batter. These settlers established their colony of New Amsterdam, and with it, the first American frying traditions that would eventually mutate into the modern donut. The alakoek was not a refined confection. It was working-class fuel, sold from carts on cobblestone streets to dockworkers, sailors, and manual laborers who needed calories to unload ships and build an emerging commercial empire. The smell of frying pork fat became the signature scent of the colonial waterfront, signaling the birth of American fast food. The Dutch did not invent fried dough, but they industrialized its presence on American soil, establishing the pushcart economy that would define street food for the next 3 centuries. When American forces entered the First World War in 1917, they carried with them a demand for familiar calories in an unfamiliar hell. Field kitchens produced hot, sugary rings fried in salvaged metal helmets, creating the most potent morale weapon in the military arsenal. The troops returned home with an insatiable craving, and the nickname stuck. They were called doughboys, not because of the buttons on their uniforms, but because of the fried rings they consumed between artillery barrages and trench raids. Entire platoons would halt their advance for the promise of a hot ring, making the donut as essential to the war effort as ammunition. The donut had proven its strategic value. It was cheap to produce, easy to transport, and psychologically devastating when American soldiers ate them in full view of enemy lines. The war did not just popularize the donut. It militarized it, turning a humble street food into a permanent symbol of American military might. The post-war explosion of demand created a technological race that would forever alter the architecture of the donut. In 1920, a Russian immigrant named Adolf Levitt invented the first automated donut machine in New York City, a mechanical marvel that dropped rings of dough into boiling fat, flipped them with steel arms, and deposited them on conveyor belts in a continuous stream of golden output. The machine did not just make donuts faster. It made them identical, transforming a handmade craft into an industrial commodity. Levitt installed his machines behind glass windows, turning production into theater. Crowds gathered on Broadway to watch the mechanical birth of the American breakfast, blocking traffic to witness the spectacle of progress. By the 1930s, the automated donut had become a symbol of American modernity itself, standardized, mass-produced, and infinitely replicable. The donut was no longer fried by hand. It was manufactured by the machine, and the machine would soon conquer the continent. The industrial donut needed an empire to distribute it, and two rival kingdoms emerged to claim the throne. In 1937, Vernon Rudolph founded Krispy Kreme in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, guarding his yeast-raised recipe with the secrecy of a military code and building a vertically integrated kingdom where every store received fresh dough from a central commissary. 3 decades later, William Rosenberg opened Dunkin' Donuts in Quincy, Massachusetts, betting that Americans wanted speed and coffee more than they wanted ritual. The war between cake and yeast, between the Southern Hot Light Theater and the Northeastern Caffeine and economy, divided American territory into rival zones of loyalty. The conflict shaped American geography, creating strongholds of yeast and cake, a culinary civil war fought with sugar and fat. Krispy Kreme built an empire of spectacle, flashing neon signs to announce fresh production. Dunkin' built an empire of efficiency, optimizing the transaction until the donut became a loss leader for coffee. 2 philosophies. 1 fried ring. And a nation forced to choose sides. By the mid-20th century, the donut had infiltrated the American night. When other restaurants closed at dusk, donut shops remained open to serve the third shift, the long-haul truckers, and the uniformed patrolmen who needed caffeine and calories at 3 in the morning. The association was born not from comedy, but from economics. The donut shop was the only warm place with cheap food and open doors in the darkened American city. Hollywood seized the image, amplified it, and exported it globally until the donut became inseparable from American law enforcement in the cultural imagination. Simultaneously, the ring conquered foreign markets. Japan developed mochi donuts. Korea created elaborate stuffed rings. The cronut fused croissant and donut into a $5 luxury product. Each nation imprinted its own identity onto the ring, proving that the donut is not an American invention but an American conquest. The donut had evolved from battlefield ration to industrial commodity to cultural meme, adapting to any empire it encountered. The donut is a perfect circle for a reason. It has no beginning and no end, no top and no bottom, no hierarchy of crust and crumb. It is the most democratic food ever invented, consumed by kings and soldiers, by dockworkers and executives, by machine operators and cartoon characters. From the Roman soldier's honey-soaked fritter to the automated ring that rolls off a steel conveyor in Winston-Salem, the donut has always been more than flour and fat. It is the story of American ingenuity, military strategy, industrial automation, and cultural mythology, compressed into a single fried circumference. The next time you hold that ring in your hand, understand what you are eating. You are not consuming a snack. You are biting into 2,000 years of conquest, commerce, and mechanical perfection. The donut built empires. And empires, in turn, built the donut. The circle is complete.